Define economics and explain its nature and scope. Definition of economics. Economics is the social science that studies how individuals, businesses, governments, and societies make choices about allocating scarce resources to satisfy their unlimited wants. Lionel Robbins provided one of the most widely accepted definitions of economics. Economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. This definition emphasizes the problem of scarcity and choice. Economics deals with the efficient use of limited resources to meet the needs and wants of individuals and society. Nature of economics. 1. Science of scarcity. Economics studies how scarce resources like land, labor, and capital are used to meet the competing needs of society. It addresses the central economic problem of how to allocate these resources efficiently. 2. Social science. Economics is a social science as it studies human behavior in relation to resource allocation and the decision-making processes of individuals, households, firms, and governments. 3. Positive and normative. Economics can be both positive, that is describing what is, and normative, prescribing what ought to be. Positive economics deals with facts, while normative economics includes value judgment. 4th, dynamic. The study of economics is dynamic because the needs of society change over time. Policies that may be effective in one era might not work in another due to evolving societal conditions. Scope of economics. 1. Microeconomics. Studies individual units of an economy such as households and firms and how they make decisions regarding resource allocation. 2. Macroeconomics. Deals with the economy as a whole, examining large-scale economic phenomena like inflation, unemployment, and national income. 3rd, development economics. Focuses on the economies of developing countries, aiming to understand and address issues like poverty, inequality, and economic growth. 4th, international economics. Studies trade and finance between nations, examining the effects of globalization, exchange rates, and trade policies. 5th, public economics. Concerned with government policies related to taxation, public expenditure, and how government intervention can correct market failures. Next, what is the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics? Microeconomics. Definition. Microeconomics focuses on individual units such as households, firms, and industries. It analyzes how these entities make decisions about resource allocation and how they interact in specific markets. Scope. It examines concepts like demand and supply, elasticity, market equilibrium, production, cost, and consumer behavior. Example. A company deciding how much of a product to produce, or an individual deciding how much to spend on groceries. Macroeconomics. Definition. Macroeconomics studies the overall functioning of the economy, focusing on the aggregate measures such as national income, total employment, and inflation. It deals with large-scale economic issues that affect the entire economy. Scope. Topics include gross domestic product (GDP), fiscal policy, monetary policy, inflation rates, unemployment, and economic growth. Example. The government managing inflation through monetary policies or creating fiscal policies to address unemployment. The key differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics is on the basis of focus, scope, objective, and example. Focus microeconomics deals with individual units, that is, consumers and firms, whereas macroeconomics focuses on economy as a whole. Microeconomics scope includes demand and supply, price determination, whereas macroeconomics scope includes GDP, inflation, unemployment. Microeconomics objective is to optimize individual outcomes, whereas macroeconomics objective is to stabilize the economy and ensure growth. Microeconomics example is a firm deciding on output levels, whereas macroeconomics example includes government managing inflation or recession. Next, explain the branches of economics with examples. Economics has several branches, each dealing with different aspects of the economic world. Here are some key branches. 1. Microeconomics. This branch analyzes small individual parts of the economy, such as consumer behavior and firm production decisions. It helps explain how prices and output levels are determined in specific markets. Example: studying how a rise in the price of coffee affects the demand for tea as a substitute. 2. Macroeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with large-scale economic phenomena. It looks at aggregate indicators like GDP and national income, aiming to understand the functioning of the entire economy. Example: analyzing the effect of tax cut on national income and employment. Third, development economics. This branch focuses on the economic conditions and policies needed to promote development in poorer nations. It deals with issues like poverty, inequality, and sustainable development. Example: studying the impact of microfinance on poverty alleviation in rural India. Fourth, international economics. This field studies trade and financial interactions between nations. It explores topics like comparative advantage, exchange rates, and the balance of payments. Example includes analyzing how changes in tariffs affect the trade balance between India and China. Fifth, public economics. Public economics examines government intervention in the economy. It focuses on how taxes, subsidies subsidies and government spending influence economic outcomes. Example includes assessing how an increase in public spending on infrastructure affects economic growth. Sixth, behavioral economics. Behavioral economics integrates insights from psychology to understand how individuals make economic decisions that deviate from traditional rational behavior models. Example includes studying why consumers often fail to save enough for retirement despite knowing the long-term benefits. Each branch of economics offers valuable insights into specific areas of economic activity, helping individuals, firms, and governments make informed decisions. Next, discuss the different definitions of economics given by classical and modern economists. Economics has been defined in various ways by economists from different schools of thought, reflecting the evolution of the discipline over time. Both classical and modern economists have offered distinct perspectives based on the nature of economic activity, human behavior, and resource management. Here's a look at how key economists have defined economics. Classical economists like Adam Smith focused on wealth creation, production, and the functioning of free markets. They viewed economics largely as a study of how nations achieve prosperity and wealth. Modern economists, modern definitions such as those given by Alfred Marshall and Lionel Robbins expanded the scope of economics beyond wealth to include human welfare and the broader study of choice and scarcity. These economists considered both material and non material aspects of economic activities with an emphasis on decision making under limited resources. Next, how did Adam Smith define economics? Adam Smith, often referred to as the father of economics, defined economics in terms of wealth creation and the functioning of markets in his work An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nation. His definition can be summarized as economics is the study of how nations generate wealth and prosperity through the production and exchange of goods and services. Key aspects of Adam Smith's definition: 1. Wealth-centric view. Smith saw economics as a science of wealth and material well-being. His focus was on how nations can increase their wealth through specialization, division of labor, and free markets. 2. Laissez-faire economy. Laissez-faire. Smith advocated for minimal government interference in the economy, promoting the idea that the invisible hand of the market guides resources towards their most efficient use. Third, role of self-interest. According to Smith, individuals pursuing their own self-interest would naturally benefit society as a whole, as competition would lead to better products and services. Fourth, capitalist foundation. Smith's definition laid the foundation for classical economics and capitalist systems, emphasizing production, trade, and market mechanisms. Example: Adam Smith illustrated how the specialization of labor, such as in a pin factory, would greatly increase productivity and generate wealth, thus contributing to the prosperity of a nation. Next, compare the views of Alfred Marshall and Lionel Robbins on economics. While both Alfred Marshall and Lionel Robbins were modern economists, their definitions of economics reflect distinct approaches. Alfred Marshall's definition of economics. Alfred Marshall, a British economist, defined economics as economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and use of the material requisites of well-being. Key aspects of Marshall's definition. 1. Welfare-oriented. Unlike the classical view, Marshall emphasized that economics is not just about wealth, but about human welfare. Economics for him was a means to improve the well-being of people by ensuring their material needs are met. 2. Human behavior focus. Marshall shifted the focus to human behavior, analyzing how individuals and society make economic decisions that impact their material well-being. Third, microeconomic approach. Marshall was primarily interested in the behavior of individuals and firms, making him one of the pioneers of microeconomics. Fourth, elasticity of demand and supply. He introduced important concepts like elasticity, which measured how changes in price impact demand and supply. Examples: Marshall highlighted that economics is about improving people's standard of living, where concepts like price determination and consumer choice play key roles. Lionel Robbins' definition of economics. Lionel Robbins, a British economist, provided one of the most influential modern definitions of economics in his book, An Essay on the Nature and Significance of Economic Science. He defined economics as economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. Key aspects of Robbins' definition. 1. Scarcity and choice. Robbins introduced the concept of scarcity, stating that resources are limited but human wants are unlimited. Economics therefore studies how to allocate scarce resources to fulfill competing needs. 2. Scientific approach. He emphasized that economics is a positive science that deals with facts, not a normative one that prescribes what ought to be. It showed focus on understanding choices, not making value judgments. Third, universal relevance. Robbins argued that economics applies to all human behavior involving choices between competing uses of resources, making it a broader field than Marshall's welfare-centric view. Fourth, focus on opportunity cost. Robbins' definition introduced the idea of opportunity cost, which is the cost of foregoing the next best alternative when making a choice. Example: Robbins' definition applies when deciding whether to allocate time between studying for an exam or working a part-time job. Since resources, that is time, is limited, individual must make choice that involve trade-offs. Comparison of Marshall and Robbins' views. The aspect is focus, nature of economics, scope, human behavior, approach, key concept and example. Alfred Marshall focused on welfare and material well-being, while Lionel Robbins focused on scarcity and choice. Alfred Marshall defined economics as a study of human welfare, whereas Lionel Robbins defined it as economics is a science of decision making. The scope of economics as per Alfred Marshall is narrower because it focuses on material requisites of life, whereas Lionel Robbins' scope of economics is broader, which includes all behavior involving choices. Alfred Marshall emphasized welfare-enhancing action, whereas Lionel Robbins focuses on human behavior under scarcity. Alfred Marshall's approach is normative, that is, it makes value judgments, whereas Lionel Robbins' approach is positive, that is, it describes what is without judgment. Alfred Marshall's key concept includes welfare, utility, and consumer choice, whereas Lionel Robbins' key concept includes scarcity, choice, and opportunity cost. An example of Alfred Marshall would be studying demand and supply in the markets. An example for Lionel Robbins would be allocation of resources between alternatives. Conclusion: the definitions of economics have evolved from focusing primarily on wealth and material well-being, that is Adam Smith and Alfred Marshall, to encompassing broader concepts like scarcity, choice, and human decision-making, that is Lionel Robbins. Each economist's definition reflects the changing concerns of society, with modern economists like Robbins expanding the scope of economics to include all forms of human behavior under the constraints of limited resources. Next, explain the concept of scarcity and choice in economics. Scarcity. In economics, scarcity refers to the fundamental problem that resources such as land, labor, capital, and raw materials are limited, while human wants and needs are unlimited. Since resources are finite, they cannot fully satisfy all the desires of individuals or societies. Scarcity forces people, firms, and governments to make decisions about how to allocate these limited resources efficiently to meet the most critical needs and wants. This reality underlies all economic activities as people must choose what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom to produce. Choice. Because of scarcity, choice is inevitable in economics. Every economic agent, whether an individual, firm, or government, must prioritize certain goods and services over others. This process of decision making in the face of limited resources leads to the need for trade offs. When you choose one option, you forego others, creating the basis of economic decision making. In essence, economics studies how individuals and societies make choices to allocate scarce resources most effectively. Next, how does scarcity lead to the problem of choice? Scarcity is the driving force behind the problem of choice. Since resources are limited, individuals and societies cannot satisfy all their needs and desires. This means they must choose between competing alternatives. Every time a choice is made, there is a cost associated with the option not chosen, known as the opportunity cost. Explanation 1. Limited resources, unlimited wants. Human desires are infinite, but the resources to fulfill those desires, like time, money, raw materials, and labor, are finite. For instance, governments must decide whether to allocate funds to healthcare, education, or infrastructure due to budget limitations. 2. Trade offs. When one good is chosen, another must be sacrificed. If a company uses its resources to produce cars, it might have to reduce the production of trucks. This trade off highlights the problem of choice, which is central to economics. Third, efficient allocation. The problem of choice requires individuals and firms to allocate resources to maximize utility or profits. Consumer must decide how to spend their money to derive the most satisfaction, while firms must decide how to allocate resources to produce goods efficiently. Example: a government might face a scarcity of funds and must decide between building a hospital or investing in a highway. Choosing one means foregoing the benefits of the other. This trade off illustrates how scarcity forces societies to make difficult choices. Next, what is opportunity cost? Illustrate with examples. Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost refers to the value of the next best alternative that is foregone when a choice is made. It is the cost of foregoing other options when choosing one course of action over another. Opportunity cost is crucial in decision making because it highlights the cost associated with every choice, not in monetary terms, but in terms of what is sacrificed. In simple terms, opportunity cost is what you give up to get something else. It reflects the trade-offs involved in any decision where scarce resources are allocated. Importance in economics. Opportunity cost is central to the concept of scarcity and choice. It helps both individuals and businesses evaluate the true cost of decisions. Whenever a resource is used in one way, it cannot be used in another. So understanding the opportunity cost helps make more informed and efficient choices. Example 1. Individual example. Imagine you have $20 and two choices. You can either go to the movie or buy a book. If you decide to buy the book, the opportunity cost is the enjoyment and experience you would have gained from watching the movie. If you choose the movie, your opportunity cost is the knowledge and satisfaction you would have gained from reading the book. 2. Business example. A factory has limited capital and must choose between investing in new machinery to increase production or spending the funds on advertising to increase sales. If the company chooses to buy the machinery, the opportunity cost is the potential sales increase from the advertising campaign. Third, government example. Governments face opportunity costs when allocating budgets. For example, if a government spends more money on defense, the opportunity cost might be less spending on education or healthcare. The resources used for one sector cannot be used for the other, illustrating the trade-off between different societal priorities. Conclusion: the concepts of scarcity and choice are fundamental in economics because they highlight the challenges of resource allocation in a world where wants exceed available resources. Scarcity leads to the problem of choice, where individuals, businesses, and governments must make decisions about how to use their limited resources. Every choice comes with an opportunity cost, which is the next best alternative that must be sacrificed. Understanding these concepts helps explain the decision-making process in economics, ensuring that scarce resources are used as efficiently as possible. Next, what is the significance of economics in law? The intersection of economics and law is crucial for understanding how legal frameworks impact economic outcomes and how economic principles can guide the formation of laws. Economics provides a systematic way to analyze human behavior, resource allocation, and decision making, which are all essential elements of the law. By applying economic analysis, we can better assess how laws affect efficiency, fairness, and the allocation of resources in society. Significance of economics in law. 1. Efficiency in lawmaking. Economic principles can help legislatures create laws that maximize societal welfare by ensuring that resources are allocated efficiently. Laws that promote market efficiency and reduce waste contribute to economic growth and social well-being. 2. Resource allocation and justice. Legal rules determine how resources are distributed, and economics helps assess whether this distribution is equitable and efficient. Concepts like property rights and contract law are grounded in economic principles that focus on creating incentives for productive behavior and ensuring fairness. Third, cost-benefit analysis. Economic analysis is often used to evaluate the costs and benefits of legal decisions. This ensures that laws are made with a view to maximizing the overall welfare of the society, balancing costs with the benefits provided. Fourth, behavioral incentives. Economic models explain how people respond to legal incentives such as fines, taxes, or subsidies. Understanding these behavioral responses can help legal institutions design policies that achieve desired outcomes, such as compliance with regulations or reduced criminal behavior. Next, how does economic analysis help in legal decision making? Economic analysis is an important tool for legal decision making as it helps lawmakers, judges, and policymakers understand the consequences of laws and legal actions in terms of efficiency, fairness, and overall societal welfare. Key ways economic analysis helps. 1. Predicting outcomes. Economics helps predict the impact of legal rules by analyzing how individuals and businesses respond to incentives created by laws. For example, when courts or regulators design policies, they often use economic analysis to forecast how different groups will behave under those rules. Example, imposing higher fines for environmental pollution would economically incentivize companies to adapt cleaner production methods, as the cost of non-compliance would outweigh the cost of pollution reduction. 2. Cost benefit analysis in legal reform. Economic analysis is used to weigh the benefits of legal regulations against their costs. If the cost of implementing a regulation outweighs the potential benefit to society, the regulation might be considered inefficient. Example, a city considering whether to enforce a new traffic law might use economic analysis to compare the cost of enforcement, that is hiring officers, new equipment, with the expected benefits, that is fewer accidents, smoother traffic flow, etc. Third, evaluating legal consequences. Courts can use economic analysis to evaluate the consequences of legal rulings in terms of their effects on economic efficiency and fairness. For instance, decisions in antitrust cases often rely on economic models to determine whether certain business practices restrict competition and harm consumer welfare. Fourth, promoting efficiency. Legal systems aim to resolve disputes and enforce contracts in a way that promotes efficiency. By ensuring that resources are allocated efficiently, economic analysis supports legal decisions that maximize societal welfare, reduce transaction costs, and prevent market failures. Next, explain with examples where economic principles are applied in legal cases. Economic principles have been applied in a wide range of legal cases, especially in areas like property law, contract law, tort law, and antitrust law. Below are examples of how economics plays a role in various legal contexts. 1. Property law. Economic principles are deeply embedded in property law, especially in determining how property rights can encourage economic efficiency and resource use. Example, in land disputes, courts use the Coase theorem, C-O-A-S-E theorem, which states that if property rights are clearly defined and transaction costs are low, private parties can negotiate solutions to conflicts over resource use that maximize efficiency. For example, if two neighbors dispute land use, clear property rights can lead to efficient bargaining and optimal resource use. 2. Contract law. Contracts are essential for economic transactions, and economic analysis helps ensure that contract law promotes mutual benefits for both parties involved. Example, in contract disputes, courts often evaluate economic efficiency by looking at whether the terms of the contract promote mutually beneficial exchanges. The legal doctrine of efficient breach, BREACH, is an economic principle applied in contract law where breaching a contract is allowed if the benefits of breach for both parties outweigh the costs. For instance, if a supplier finds a better deal and compensates the original buyer, breaching the original contract could result in an efficient outcome. Third, tort law. In tort law, economic principles are used to assess the optimal level of precaution that individuals or firms should take to avoid causing harm to others. The goal is to minimize the overall cost of accidents. For example, negligence cases often apply the hand rule formulated by Judge Learned Hand, which is an economic cost-benefit analysis of negligence. According to this rule, A party is considered negligent if the cost of preventing harm is less than the probability of harm multiplied by the extent of the harm. C is less than P multiplied by L. That is, P is probability and L is harm. Cost is less than the probability and the extent of harm. This is an economic way to determine liability by evaluating whether the cost of precaution would have been lower than the potential damage. Fourth, antitrust law. Antitrust law deals with maintaining competition in the market. Economic analysis is critical in determining whether business practices restrict competition, lead to monopolies, or harm consumer welfare. For example, in the landmark case United States versus Microsoft Corporation 2001, economic analysis was central in determining whether Microsoft's bundling of Internet Explorer with Windows violated antitrust laws by reducing competition in the browser market. The court used economic reasoning to assess the anti-competitive behavior and the effect on market efficiency and consumer welfare. Fifth, environmental law. Economic tools like cost-benefit analysis and externalities, unintended side effects of economic activities, that is, externalities is unintended side effects of economic activity, are commonly applied in environmental law to design regulations that balance economic activity with environmental protection. For example, pollution control laws use the concept of externalities where economic activity like factory production imposes cost on third parties such as environmental damage. Laws that impose penalties on polluters or establishing carbon pricing mechanisms are based on the economic principle of internalizing the cost of pollution. Conclusion: the significance of economics in law lies in its ability to improve decision making by providing a framework for understanding how legal rules influence behavior, allocate resources, and affect overall welfare. Economic analysis is essential in creating laws that are efficient, fair, and aligned with societal goals. Through the application of economic principles such as cost-benefit analysis, opportunity cost, and incentives, legal decision makers can craft rules that promote both justice and economic efficiency. In areas like property law, contract law, tort law, and antitrust law, economics provides valuable insights that lead to better legal outcomes for individuals and society.